What if you discover that the girl who humiliates you every single day at school is, in fact, living your life, spending your money, and sleeping in your mansion? Close your eyes for a second and really imagine this incredibly frustrating scenario. You wake up every single morning in a cramped, freezing room of an overcrowded orphanage, struggling to find even a fleeting reason to smile. You are an orphan, carrying the heavy, silent burden of a lonely past, working twice as hard just to survive, to put food on your table, and to maintain a mere shred of dignity in a world that seems designed to break you. Then, you walk through the heavy double doors of your high school only to be met with the cruel, mocking laughter and relentless bullying of the most popular, wealthy, and arrogant girl in town. She flaunts the latest designer clothes, arrives in a sleek, chauffeur luxury car, and makes it her absolute personal mission to turn your daily existence into a waking nightmare. Have you ever felt completely invisible, as if the universe had dealt you the worst possible hand while handing everything on a solid silver platter to someone who simply does not deserve it? Have you ever had to swallow your pride while someone who seemingly has it all constantly stepped on your dreams? It is a heavy, suffocating feeling that eats away at your soul. But what if I told you that the universe didn't make a mistake? What if I told you that this cruel, unbalanced reality is actually the result of a dark, twisted lie? A massive case of swapped identity that deliberately robbed you of your rightful destiny. Stay with me until the end of this video, because this is not just another teen drama or a simple tale of high school rivalry. This is an intensely emotional story about justice, deep betrayal, and the shocking, world-shattering revelation of a long-lost heiress. You see, the girl tormenting you, the one who makes you feel so small every single day, isn't who she claims to be. Every glittering diamond she wears around her neck, every grand, sweeping marble staircase she descends in, her sprawling estate, and every single cent of the vast millionaire fortune actually belongs to you. She stole your past, she hijacked your present, and she is desperately trying to erase your future. What you are about to discover might surprise you, because the fragile line between extreme poverty and unimaginable wealth is sometimes drawn by a single, highly malicious act of deceit. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated audacity of someone finding out your deepest, most guarded secret, the only fragile, tangible link you have left to your biological parents, and brutally twisting it to claim your throne. The level of injustice is enough to make anyone's blood boil. You watch her smile flawlessly for the flashing cameras of the local paparazzi, being warmly embraced by the loving, incredibly wealthy family that has been desperately searching for you their entire lives. They are completely unaware that their real daughter, the child they have cried over for years, is standing right there in the shadows, enduring humiliation day after day at the hands of the very monster living under their opulent roof. This emotional roller coaster isn't just about the money or the glamorous lifestyle. It is about stolen love, a completely stolen identity, and the cruelest, most calculating form of psychological manipulation imaginable. We all love a modern Cinderella story, where the underdog finally gets the royal treatment, but this narrative goes so much deeper and gets so much darker than a simple lost glass slipper. This is about a pure-hearted victim of severe, systematic bullying who is entirely unaware of her own immense power and her true place in the world. It makes you deeply wonder about the people around you, doesn't it? Have you ever looked at someone whose life seems absolutely perfect and wondered what dark, terrible secrets they are hiding behind their closed mansion doors? Think about the nights our true heiress spends crying herself to sleep, clutching a small, faded photograph or a simple, tarnished locket, the only piece of her history she was ever allowed to keep. She doesn't initially dream of billions of dollars, private jets, or luxury vacations. She simply dreams of a mother's warm hug, a father's protective voice, and a safe place where she finally belongs. That raw, deeply human desire for family is exactly what makes this swapped identity so incredibly heartbreaking. The imposter didn't just steal a massive bank account, she stole the goodnight kisses, the warm family holidays, and the unconditional love that our protagonist has been starved of her entire existence. Can you even begin to fathom the level of cold-blooded nerve required to look a grieving mother in the eyes and lovingly call her mom, knowing full well you are a complete fraud? It is a masterclass in deception, a high-stakes psychological game of chess where the true queen has been maliciously manipulated into playing the role of a lowly pawn. But here is where the story truly hooks you and refuses to let go. Our Cinderella isn't going to remain a helpless victim forever. The beauty of this drama lies in the spectacular awakening. What you are about to discover might surprise you, because the exact moment a person who has lost everything realizes they actually own the world, a brilliant transformation occurs. The transition from a bullied, timid orphan to a fierce, undeniable force of nature is a journey that will keep you absolutely glued to your screen. You will feel her initial confusion morph into dawning realization, her realization turn into simmering, righteous anger, and her anger forge into an unstoppable drive for absolute justice. You will find yourself practically screaming at the screen, cheering for her to piece the puzzle together before the fake heiress can permanently silence her and send her away. The air is thick with anticipation and dread. The imposter is getting careless, drunk on her stolen power, throwing lavish parties and buying fake loyalty with stolen credit cards. But the foundation of her glamorous empire is built on quicksand. The real heiress is starting to notice the glaring inconsistencies, the aggressive way the imposter guards her bedroom, the frantic, panicked look in her eyes whenever the past is mentioned, and the strange, haunting familiarity of the family crest that is suddenly plastered all over the news. The collision between these two lives is imminent. A massive storm is brewing right under the roof of the most prestigious academy in the country, and the fallout is going to be absolutely legendary. The scattered pieces are slowly falling into place, and the intricate web of lies is violently trembling under the weight of a single, undeniable clue hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the perfect moment to ignite. Just waiting for the perfect moment to ignite. When you watch a story like this unfold, it hits a very deep and personal nerve, doesn't it? Because even if we aren't personally fighting to reclaim a billion-dollar empire from a high school bully, almost all of us have felt the bitter, isolating sting of injustice in our own lives. We have all had those dark moments where we felt completely unseen, undervalued, or deeply wronged by someone who seemingly held all the power and faced zero consequences. If this topic resonates with you, leave it here in the comments and share. What has touched you the most about our true heiress's journey so far? Have you ever faced a situation where you had to fight tooth and nail just to prove your own worth? Or watch someone else take the credit for your light? I genuinely want to read your stories and opinions, because building a safe, supportive community where we can connect over these raw emotions is the beating heart of what we do here. Honestly, your participation here is exactly what makes this channel grow and allows us to reach more people with this kind of impactful, emotional content. When you take just a brief second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, you are doing so much more than just interacting with a screen. You are actively supporting our mission, ensuring that we can continue bringing these deeply moving narratives of resilience, hope, and justice to life week after week. It sends a powerful message that stories about uncovering the truth truly matter and deserve to be shared with the world. So, if you are ready to see the ultimate justice served, make sure you are subscribed and officially part of our family, because that brewing storm we were just talking about, it is finally making landfall. While the fake heiress is busy picking out a diamond tiara for the most exclusive, televised high society gala of the year, completely oblivious to the ground, crumbling beneath her expensive heels, our true protagonist has just stumbled upon a hidden, locked wooden box in the dusty, forgotten attic of the orphanage. It is a box that holds the exact missing piece of the puzzle she so desperately needs. And as her trembling hands slowly turn the rusted key in the lock, a profound silence falls over the dusty room, heavy with the weight of unspilled tears and decades of forgotten memories. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because to truly understand the sheer magnitude of what is about to happen, we have to look past the surface and truly immerse ourselves in the heartbreaking reality of our protagonist's daily existence. Before the grand balls, before the flashing cameras, and long before the shocking revelations that will turn this elite society upside down, there is a quiet, agonizing daily struggle that she endures entirely alone. We need to explore the behind the scenes of a life that has been systematically designed to break her spirit. A life where every single day is a grueling test of endurance. Imagine waking up before the sun even dares to rise, not in a bed adorned with silk sheets, but on a thin, lumpy mattress in a freezing room that constantly smells of damp wood and bleach. This is her reality at the orphanage, long before her wealthy classmates even hit the snooze button on their expensive alarm clocks. She is already awake, scrubbing floors, doing laundry, and preparing breakfast for dozens of other children. She works until her hands are raw and blistered, yet she does it with a strange, quiet grace. Despite the crushing weight of her circumstances, she possesses a mindset that refuses to be corrupted by bitterness. She chooses kindness in an environment that has shown her none. She shares her meager portions of food with the younger orphans, reads them stories to help them escape their grim surroundings, and offers a warm, gentle smile to those who are just as broken as she is. This conscious choice to remain pure-hearted is one of the most powerful decisions she makes every single day, proving that true nobility is a matter of character, not a matter of bloodline or bank accounts. But the harsh reality is that this internal goodness does not shield her from the brutal world outside those crumbling orphanage walls. Her escape, or what was supposed to be her escape, is her academic brilliance through sheer intellectual force and relentless studying by the dim light of a street lamp outside her window. She managed to secure a highly coveted scholarship to the most prestigious, exclusive high school in the country. This should have been the start of her beautiful transformation, a golden ticket out of poverty. Instead, it became an entirely new circle of hell. The moment she steps through those towering iron gates, she is no longer a bright, promising student. She is a target. She is instantly marked by her faded, second-hand uniform, her worn-out shoes, and the quiet, apologetic way she tries to make herself as small as possible in the sprawling, opulent hallways. The contrast is jarring and cruel. She is surrounded by teenagers who drive cars that cost more than she will likely earn in a lifetime. Teenagers who discuss their weekend shopping trips to Paris, while she silently worries about how to afford her next notebook. And at the absolute center of this glittering, toxic ecosystem is the fake heiress, the girl who, unbeknownst to everyone, is living a life purchased with our protagonist's stolen destiny. The bully doesn't just tease her, she orchestrates a systematic, psychological campaign to completely destroy her. She deliberately spills hot coffee on her only decent shirt, heavily mocks her financial status in front of the entire cafeteria, and maliciously sabotages her assignments, all while hiding behind a pristine, untouchable smile. The impact of this relentless emotional abuse is devastating. Our true heiress is forced to swallow her pride, biting her tongue until it bleeds, choosing silence over retaliation because she knows that one wrong move, one complaint to a biased administration, could cost her the scholarship that is her only lifeline. You can feel the heavy, suffocating isolation that wraps around her like a second skin. She walks through a crowd of hundreds, yet she has never been more entirely alone. There is no mother to wipe her tears when she returns to the orphanage, exhausted and humiliated. There is no father to stand up for her and tell her she is valuable. There is only the cold, unforgiving reality of her solitude. Yet, amidst all this darkness, there is an undeniable spark, a hidden truth buried deep within her DNA that refuses to be completely extinguished. It is in the way she holds her head up after being pushed to the ground, the fierce, unspoken dignity in her eyes when she looks at the girl who torments her, a subconscious knowing that she is meant for something far greater than this life of servitude and pain. She is completely unaware of the massive empire that rightfully belongs to her. But her soul seems to carry the regal weight of a true leader. The journey she is on is not just about surviving high school. It is a profound crucible, a forging of a queen in the fires of absolute adversity. Every insult she endures, every tear she silently sheds in the dark, is unknowingly preparing her for the colossal battle ahead. She is learning the true value of empathy, the agonizing cost of poverty, and the absolute necessity of justice, lessons that the fake heiress, blinded by an earned luxury and artificial power, could never possibly comprehend. When you look at her, you don't just see a victim. You see a dormant volcano. The empathy we feel for her isn't just pity. It is a deep, resonant admiration for her unbreakable resilience. We watch her painstakingly glue the broken pieces of her life back together day after day, and we become fiercely invested in her eventual triumph. We need to see her win, not just because it makes for a good story, but because it satisfies a fundamental human craving for cosmic fairness. The emotional connection she establishes with us is so raw and authentic that her pain literally becomes our pain, and her small, unnoticed victories become our reasons to cheer. We are walking right beside her through these dark, hostile corridors, feeling the sting of every cruel laugh and the heavy burden of every lonely night. And as she stands there in the dusty attic, holding whatever crucial secret was locked inside the wooden box, the atmosphere crackles with a dangerous, electric energy. The puzzle pieces of her fragmented past are finally aligning, whispering the secrets of a legacy that was violently ripped from her tiny hands. All those years ago, the stage is being meticulously set for a reckoning of epic proportions, a moment where the balance of the universe will forcefully demand to be corrected. Comment down below. I am totally invested in this journey. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the contents of the dusty, forgotten wooden box represent the absolute emotional core of our entire narrative. As the rusted key finally turns with a sharp, echoing click, the heavy lid creaks open, releasing the faint, sweet scent of dried lavender and old paper into the stale attic air. Inside, resting on a bed of frayed, time-worn velvet, lies the very anchor of our protagonist's existence. It is not a stack of cash, nor is it a magical solution to her immediate, crushing poverty. It is a single, intricately carved silver locket suspended from a delicate, though slightly tarnished, chain. To the untrained eye of a casual observer, or to the spoiled, superficial gaze of the wealthy students who torment her daily, this piece of jewelry might look like nothing more than a worthless trinket picked up at a flea market. But to our bullied orphan, it is the center of her entire universe. The front of the heavy silver pendant bears a deeply engraved, highly specific crest of majestic, intertwined design of roaring lions and blooming roses that she has spent hours tracing with her rough, blistered fingertips. She has absolutely no idea that this exact crest is currently stamped on the golden gates of the largest estate in the country, on the private jets of a billionaire dynasty, and on the legal documents of an empire. To her, it isn't a symbol of unimaginable wealth or absolute power. It is the only tangible proof she has ever had that she did not just magically appear from thin air. It is the only physical evidence that once, a long time ago, she was wanted, she was held, and she was fiercely loved. This single, fragile object is the quiet engine driving her immense internal transformation. When you have absolutely nothing, no family, no money, no societal standing, and no voice, an object like this ceases to be mere metal. It becomes a literal lifeline. It shapes her entire mindset. Whenever she is pushed into the lockers, laughed at in the cafeteria, or forced to scrub the orphanage floors until her knees ache and bleed, she closes her eyes and feels the imaginary weight of the locket against her chest. It allows her to survive the unbearable. It fuels the silent, Powerful decisions she makes every single day to keep her head held high and her heart completely free of the toxic hatred that her bullies try so desperately to infect her with. The emotional impact of possessing this singular connection to a mysterious past is profound. It gives her a secret, unshakable dignity. During the dark, freezing nights, when the isolation of her reality threatens to swallow her completely, she carefully opens the locket. Inside, there is no photograph, only a small, tightly folded piece of yellow parchment bearing a single, handwritten sentence in elegant, faded ink, "Our greatest treasure, forever." She doesn't know whose handwriting it is. She doesn't know the faces of the people who chose those beautiful words. But those four words are the shield that protects her sanity. They are the quiet whisper in the dark telling her that her life has value, even when the rest of the world is screaming that she is entirely worthless. If we look closely at the behind the scenes of her incredibly difficult daily routine, we see the extreme, almost paranoid measures she takes to protect this treasure. She never, ever wears it where anyone can see it. She knows the cruel nature of her environment perfectly well. If the orphanage matron were to spot it, she would undoubtedly confiscate it and pawn it for a few meager dollars. If her wealthy, malicious bullies at school were to catch a glimpse of the tarnished silver chain, they would snatch it from her neck simply to watch her cry, tossing it into a storm drain just for a fleeting moment of cruel entertainment. So, she hides it with the desperate, fierce protection of a mother hiding her only child. She sews a secret, hidden pocket into the inside lining of her worn-out school uniform. She wraps the locket in a small piece of cloth so the metal won't clink against the buttons of her blouse when she runs. This constant state of hypervigilance adds an incredible layer of tension to her journey. Every time she passes the fake heiress in the school hallways, the girl who proudly flaunts millions of dollars worth of diamonds that she didn't earn and doesn't deserve, our protagonist instinctively presses her hand against her ribs, feeling the solid, comforting shape of her hidden truth resting safely against her beating heart. The contrast is as poetic as it is enraging. The imposter wears her stolen wealth loudly, desperately seeking external validation from a society she has completely fooled. Meanwhile, the true queen walks the halls in absolute silence, secretly carrying a legacy of immeasurable worth hidden beneath the cheap, faded fabric of a second-hand coat. This hidden truth is a ticking time bomb. The audience knows, with absolute, heart-pounding certainty, that this locket is not just a comforting keepsake. It is a smoking gun. It is the definitive, irrefutable biological and legal link that connects this bully, starving girl to a dynasty of unimaginable power and influence. It is the master key that will eventually unlock a floodgate of shocking revelations. We are completely captivated because we understand the supreme irony of the situation. The fake heiress is currently spending thousands of dollars on private investigators to ensure her tracks are covered and her dark secrets remain permanently buried, completely unaware that the singular, terrifying piece of evidence capable of destroying her entire fraudulent empire is currently sitting in the very same classroom, just a few feet away, hidden inside the jacket of the quiet girl she so casually torments. The sheer narrative tension is absolutely intoxicating. Every time our protagonist reaches for the locket to draw strength, we hold our breath, terrified that today might be the day she gets careless. Today might be the day the chain snaps. Today might be the day the fake heiress looks a little too closely and recognizes the intricate, unmistakable crest of the family she is actively robbing blind. The locket is a silent witness to every tear, every insult, and every injustice. But it is also a promise. It is a promise that the universe has not forgotten her. It is a promise that the scales of justice are slowly, inevitably preparing to tip. And as we watch her carefully tuck the silver pendant back into its secret hiding place, gently patting the fabric to ensure it is completely invisible to the predatory eyes of her classmates, we feel the undeniable, electric pull of destiny pulling the strings. She is holding a dormant volcano in the palm of her hand, completely unaware of the cataclysmic world-altering eruption it is destined to cause. The path she is walking is narrowing. The walls are closing in, and the delicate, fragile bubble of the imposter's perfect, stolen life is stretching dangerously thin. A collision is no longer just a possibility. It is an absolute, terrifying inevitability. Because secrets of this magnitude, secrets forged in silver and sealed with the agonizing pain of a stolen life, simply cannot remain in the dark forever. They demand the light. They demand to be seen, recognized, and vindicated. And the moment that hidden truth is finally exposed to the harsh, unforgiving light of day, the shockwaves will shatter the foundations of everything they thought they knew. Comment below. This piece changes everything. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the immediate aftermath of this stolen destiny is exactly where the absolute most brutal, agonizing psychological warfare truly begins. The initial theft of the silver locket in the cold school bathroom was a horrifying moment of sheer, concentrated violence. But the ongoing consolidation of this massive, sickening farce is a slow, methodical torture that creates a visual and emotional contrast so incredibly sharp it almost physically hurts to witness. Once the heavy golden gates of the billionaire estate close behind the imposter, she begins living a completely fabricated fantasy, stepping into a life of unfathomable luxury that she violently hijacked. Looking at the behind the scenes of her new daily routine, we see a masterclass in sociopathic manipulation. The fake heiress undergoes an entirely superficial, artificial transformation. She is immediately surrounded by armies of personal stylists, elite etiquette coaches, and public relations managers who polish her rough, cruel edges to make her presentable to high society. She trades her standard school uniform for custom-tailored haute couture pieces that cost more than a small house. Her morning commute is now in the back of a bulletproof chauffeur limousine, and she carelessly sips sparkling water from crystal glasses while lounging by a private, heated indoor pool. But beneath the designer makeup and the glittering diamond tiaras, her black heart remains exactly the same. The arrogant, highly malicious decisions she makes with her newly acquired, stolen wealth are absolutely infuriating. She doesn't use this miraculous blessing to help anyone or to show any gratitude. Instead, she uses the bottomless black credit cards of her grieving, unsuspecting parents to buy fake friends, silence anyone who might question her sudden arrival, and throw lavish, obscenely expensive parties simply to feed her insatiable ego. She expertly mimics the sweet, innocent smile of a traumatized, lost daughter, completely fooling the billionaire couple who are so desperately blinded by their own profound relief and overwhelming love that they fail to see the calculating monster sitting right across from them at the dining table. The psychological impact of this sickeningly perfect illusion on our true protagonist is absolutely devastating. While the imposter is being relentlessly pampered and showered with blind affection in a palatial mansion, the legitimate daughter remains trapped in the freezing, crumbling confines of the overcrowded orphanage. The contrast is a gaping, bleeding, wound in the fabric of the story. Our true heiress wakes up every single morning before dawn, her bones aching from the thin, lumpy mattress, and is forced to scrub the grimy floors of the dining hall until her hands are raw and blistered. She eats cold, meager portions of oatmeal while watching the morning news on a flickering, static-filled television screen, only to see the face of her tormentor smiling radiantly from the cover of the most prestigious magazines, proudly hailed as the miraculous returned princess of the nation's wealthiest dynasty. The sheer, suffocating weight of the hidden truth burns inside her like swallowed glass. She knows, with absolute, undeniable certainty, that the empire the imposter is currently looting belongs to her. She knows that the gentle, tearful kisses the billionaire mother plants on the imposter's cheek are kisses meant for her. This knowledge is a heavy, agonizing burden that threatens to completely break her spirit. Yet, it is precisely in the deepest, darkest trenches of this unbearable misery that her incredible mindset begins to radically shift. She is no longer just a passive, sorrowful victim drowning in self-pity. The extreme cruelty of the situation acts as a profound catalyst, forging her shattered heart into something entirely unbreakable. She realizes that no one is going to suddenly swoop in and save her. She must become her own savior. But the villain, intoxicated by her stolen power, is not satisfied with simply stealing the crown. She wants to completely obliterate the true queen. This incredibly dark phase of the journey is marked by an escalation of abuse that pushes the narrative tension to its absolute breaking point. The fake heiress returns to the prestigious high school not as a student, but as an untouchable, feared royalty. Surrounded by hired bodyguards and a sycophantic entourage, she uses her massive, unlimited financial resources to specifically target and destroy the true heiress. She maliciously bribes the school administration to constantly penalize the orphan for fabricated infractions, threatening to revoke the very scholarship that is her only lifeline. She buys the silence and loyalty of the other students, turning the entire school population into a hostile, mocking army against one defenseless, impoverished girl. The bullying transcends childish teasing and becomes a highly calculated, funded campaign of systematic psychological destruction. The imposter even goes so far as to secretly contact the greedy director of the orphanage, offering massive anonymous donations on the strict condition that the true heiress's life is made as miserable and unbearable as humanly possible, actively plotting to have her permanently expelled from the city so that the loose end of her massive lie is finally cut. It is a terrifying display of how immense wealth, when placed in the hands of a fundamentally corrupt and evil person, can be weaponized to crush the innocent. You find yourself watching these scenes with your fists tightly clenched, entirely consumed by a fiery, burning indignation. The sheer audacity of the fake daughter looking down her surgically altered nose at the very girl whose life she stole, mocking her worn-out shoes and her tired eyes, creates a pressure cooker of righteous anger. We are watching the ultimate, classic battle of good versus evil, but the playing field is so heavily, unfairly skewed that it feels almost hopeless. The true heiress is forced to navigate a terrifying minefield every single day, silently dodging the malicious trap set by a billionaire imposter, while simultaneously trying to hold onto her own fragile sanity. But the universe has a very specific, undeniable way of dealing with lies of this astronomical magnitude, a structure built entirely on stolen silver, malicious deception, and profound cruelty is inherently unstable. The imposter, arrogant and completely drunk on her unearned power, is starting to get sloppy. She doesn't realize that true nobility cannot be bought with a stolen credit card, and the quiet, fierce intelligence of our bullied orphan is secretly observing every single mistake she makes. The foundation is quietly cracking, slowly preparing for the explosive, world-shattering revelations that are destined to tear the high society elite apart. The silence of the true heiress is not a sign of defeat, it is the terrifying, calm stillness of the ocean just before a massive tsunami makes landfall. Comment down below. The contrast is absolutely sickening. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the absolute most pivotal, earth-shattering moment of this entire narrative is exactly when the heavy, suffocating fog of confusion finally lifts, and the raw, undeniable reality of the situation violently crashes down upon our protagonist. Up until this exact point, she has been trapped in a state of traumatized paralysis, violently silenced by the bully's terrifying threats, and utterly overwhelmed by the sheer, devastating cruelty of having her only precious heirloom ripped from her neck. She knew the villain had stolen her silver locket, but the true, astronomical scale of this monstrous deception had not yet fully materialized in her exhausted mind. We need to explore the behind-the-scenes of this magnificent psychological awakening, this incredible transformation that turns a broken, passive victim into an unstoppable, fiercely determined force of nature. Imagine the scene. It is late at night in the freezing, dimly lit common room of the orphanage. The protagonist is completely alone, sitting on the frayed, dusty carpet, her body aching from another grueling day of forced labor and relentless, targeted bullying at the academy. In the corner of the room, the ancient, flickering television set is quietly broadcasting an exclusive, highly anticipated primetime special. It is a lavish, intimate interview with the nation's most powerful billionaire dynasty, proudly showcasing their newly found, deeply adored daughter to the entire world. The protagonist is barely paying attention, her deeply hollowed eyes staring blankly at the glowing screen as she desperately tries to study for an exam that dictates the survival of her fragile scholarship. But then, the charismatic interviewer asks the fake heiress to share the emotional story of how she was finally reunited with her biological parents. The camera dramatically zooms in, the high-definition lenses focusing tightly on the base of the imposter's neck, and there it is, resting comfortably against the expensive, custom-tailored silk of the villain's designer dress is the heavy silver pendant, the intricate, unmistakable crest of roaring lions and blooming roses, her locket, her secret, her stolen life. The profound impact of this visual collision is absolutely indescribable. Time completely stops. The ambient noise of the ticking clock and the howling winter wind outside the frosted windows suddenly fades into an eerie, deafening silence. It is as if all the oxygen has been violently sucked out of the tiny room. The protagonist slowly stands up, her study notes falling from her trembling hands and scattering across the dirty floor. Her wide, tear-filled eyes locked onto the television screen in absolute, paralyzing horror. The cognitive dissonance violently shatters, and the dark, terrifying puzzle pieces finally lock into perfect, undeniable place. The villain didn't just physically assault her in that cold school bathroom. She didn't just steal a meaningless piece of tarnished jewelry to pawn for extra cash or to simply cause fleeting emotional pain. She stole her entire existence, the billionaire parents sitting on the velvet sofa, holding the imposter's hands and crying tears of profound gratitude, are her parents. That massive, unfathomable empire of gold, influence, and untouchable power is her birthright. The soft, gentle motherly kisses, the fiercely protective fatherly embraces, the warm, secure home she has desperately prayed for every single night since she was a lonely, starving child. All of it was maliciously hijacked by the exact same monster who makes her daily life a waking, unbearable nightmare. The sheer audacity, the cold-blooded, psychopathic calculation required to pull off such a massive, sickening lie hits her like a speeding freight train. This is the exact moment the hidden truth forcefully claws its way out of the dark and demands to be finally acknowledged. What happens next inside the mind of our true heiress is a breathtaking masterclass in psychological evolution. You can literally see the radical shift in her mentality happening in real time. For years, she has been heavily conditioned by the cruel, unforgiving system to keep her head down, to swallow her pride, to apologize for simply existing, and to quietly accept the brutal, unfair blows that the universe relentlessly handed her. But watching her tormentor smile angelically at the cameras, proudly wearing the stolen silver proof of her royal bloodline, ignites an ancient, dormant fire deep within her soul. The agonizing, crippling sorrow of her stolen childhood instantly vaporizes, violently replaced by a cold, sharp, and highly focused righteous anger. The tears of helpless frustration that were pooling in her eyes suddenly dry up, leaving behind a piercing, predatory gaze that can effortlessly cut through solid steel. This is the magnificent birth of the warrior queen. She realizes, with absolute, terrifying clarity, that she can no longer afford to be the quiet, obedient martyr. No one is going to magically ride in on a white horse to save her. No one is going to suddenly realize the massive mistake and hand her the golden crown. If she wants her stolen life back, if she wants to rescue her biological parents from the sickening, manipulative clutches of a sociopathic imposter, she is going to have to fight for it with every single ounce of breath in her lungs. The profound decision she makes in the silent, suffocating darkness of that orphanage room will completely alter the trajectory of her entire journey. This is not merely about claiming a billionaire fortune or wearing expensive diamonds. This is about divine, uncompromising justice. It is about utterly destroying a massive, toxic lie that has poisoned the very fabric of reality. The transition from a passive, terrified victim into an active, highly strategic protagonist is what makes this specific chapter of the narrative so incredibly addictive and empowering to watch. She slowly walks right up to the glowing television screen, her face just inches away from the smiling, arrogant face of the fake heiress. She reaches out her scarred, blistered hand and gently touches the cold glass, her fingers hovering exactly over the image of her stolen silver locket. A chilling, powerful promise is silently forged in that empty room. The imposter may currently have the limitless bank accounts, the heavily armed security details, the batampe for allies, and the blinding spotlight of the national media. But the true heiress possesses something infinitely more dangerous and lethal: the absolute, unadulterated truth. And the truth, when weaponized by a brilliant mind that has absolutely nothing left to lose, is the most destructive force on the face of the planet. She meticulously wipes the final tear from her pale cheek, her posture instinctively straightening, her shoulders pulling back to reveal the natural, undeniable regal elegance that has always fiercely flowed through her veins. The dark days of hiding in the shadows, of biting her tongue and silently enduring the brutal, targeted abuse of the Academy are officially over. We, as the deeply invested audience, are completely electrified by this magnificent transformation. The adrenaline violently pumps through our veins because we know exactly what is coming next. We are actively witnessing the meticulous, behind-the-scenes preparation for the most epic, satisfying downfall in the history of high society. The protagonist begins to mentally catalog every single detail, every single vulnerability, and every single arrogant mistake the fake heiress has recklessly made since ascending to the stolen throne. She knows that a frontal, highly emotional attack against a powerful billionaire dynasty would be completely suicidal. They would simply dismiss her as a crazy, jealous orphan looking for a quick payday, and the villain would enthusiastically ensure she is permanently locked away in an institution. No, she needs undeniable, irrefutable proof. She needs to carefully, strategically gather the explosive ammunition required to completely blow this fraudulent empire to absolute pieces. She needs to orchestrate a reckoning so grand, so intensely public, and so undeniably absolute that the imposter will never, ever be able to recover. The immense, palpable tension completely shifts from a feeling of helpless, suffocating despair to an intensely thrilling, high-stakes game of psychological chess. The true queen has officially entered the board, and she is moving silently, invisibly, flawlessly blending into the background of the academy halls, while secretly plotting the ultimate checkmate. The explosive revelations that are quietly brewing in the dark will not just expose a simple high school bully. They will violently tear the entire elite society apart at the seams, exposing the dark, rotting core of a world built entirely on beautiful, expensive lies. The countdown to absolute destruction has officially begun, and the fake heiress is completely, terrifyingly unaware that the ghost of the life she stole is currently standing right behind her, holding the match that will burn her golden castle to the ground. Every single cruel laugh, every designer dress bought with stolen funds, and every fake televised tear is just adding massive amounts of highly explosive fuel to the inevitable fire. Our protagonist is no longer just surviving. She is meticulously calculating, transforming her profound, agonizing pain into the ultimate, unstoppable weapon of mass justice. Comment down below. The true queen is finally awake. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because that initial, heart-stopping moment of visual recognition in front of the flickering television screen was merely the initial spark. The roaring, uncontrollable inferno that follows is fueled by a completely different kind of discovery. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of the psychological transformation, we have to look closely at the fragile line between suspicion and absolute, undeniable confirmation. It is one thing for our protagonist to see her stolen silver locket on national television and logically piece together the horrific injustice that has been done to her. It is an entirely different, incredibly visceral experience to actually hear the villain confess to the crime. This is the exact moment where the narrative shifts gears from a tragic story of endurance into a highly strategic, high-stakes thriller. The incredible mindset of our true heiress undergoes a radical, irreversible evolution. She is no longer walking through the opulent, intimidating hallways of that prestigious academy with her head bowed down, desperately trying to remain invisible, to avoid the cruel, mocking laughter of her wealthy peers. Instead, she is walking with the silent, terrifying focus of a highly trained predator observing its completely oblivious prey. The school is no longer a torture chamber. It has officially become her battlefield, and she is meticulously gathering the necessary ammunition. If we peek behind the scenes of the fake heiress's glamorous, fabricated life, we immediately notice the massive, widening cracks in her pristine porcelain mask. The unbearable weight of maintaining a lie of this astronomical magnitude is beginning to take a severe psychological toll on the imposter. She is drowning in a constant, paralyzing paranoia, terrified that every single shadow is hiding a private investigator, and every whispered conversation is about her stolen identity. This suffocating fear makes her reckless, arrogant, and incredibly prone to making highly dangerous mistakes. And the universe, with its absolute demand for cosmic balance, perfectly orchestrates the ultimate slip-up. Imagine the scene. It is late afternoon, long after the final school bell has rung. The sprawling, luxurious locker room of the academy's elite swimming pool is completely empty, the only sound being the rhythmic, echoing drip of a single shower head hitting the cold ceramic tiles. Our protagonist is quietly sitting inside one of the furthest stalls, exhausted from her mandatory cleaning duties, her worn-out sneakers pulled up to her chest to remain completely unseen. Suddenly, the heavy locker room doors violently swing open. The sharp, unmistakable click-clack of expensive designer heels echoes loudly against the damp tiles. It is the imposter. She furiously storms into the room, aggressively pacing back and forth, completely unaware that the very girl whose life she violently hijacked is sitting just a few feet away, holding her breath in the absolute, suffocating silence. The fake heiress is clutching her gold-plated cell phone, her knuckles turning completely white from the sheer pressure, and she is practically screaming at whoever is on the other end of the line. The explosive revelations that violently spill from her mouth are enough to make the protagonist's blood freeze solid in her veins. "I don't care how much money it costs, you incompetent fool," the villain fiercely hisses into the phone, her voice dripping with venom and raw panic. "You need to completely erase the original admission files from that miserable orphanage tonight. If my parents ever decide to dig deeper into my medical history, if they ever find out that I am not their biological daughter, I am entirely ruined. You need to make absolutely sure that the real orphan's birth certificate is burned to ashes. If she ever realizes that the silver locket I forcefully ripped off her neck in the bathroom is the master key to this billion-dollar empire, she will destroy me." The heavy, echoing silence that follows this frantic, whispered scream is absolutely deafening. The hidden truth has finally been spoken out loud, completely unvarnished, stripped of all its glamorous, televised lies. The villain didn't just stumble upon the locket, she deliberately, maliciously targeted the protagonist, fully knowing the astronomical value of the secret she was stealing. The emotional and psychological impact of overhearing this desperate, panic confession is absolutely colossal. For our true heiress, hiding in the shadows of the damp locker room, this is the definitive, unquestionable confirmation that completely obliterates any remaining shred of self-doubt. The final, heavy chains of her victimhood are violently shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The profound decision she makes in the silent, suffocating darkness of that stall will permanently alter the entire trajectory of her epic journey. She realizes, with absolute, terrifying clarity, that the imposter is not an untouchable, invincible god. She is merely a terrified, desperate thief frantically trying to hold together a crumbling house of golden cards. The true queen presses her hand against her mouth to muffle her heavy, adrenaline-fueled breathing, but her eyes are blazing with a cold, unstoppable, and deeply righteous fury. She could easily burst out of that stall right now, scream the truth at the top of her lungs, and physically attack the girl who stole her entire existence. But the magnificent transformation of her character prevents her from making such a reckless, emotionally driven mistake. A true leader, a genuine heir to an empire of that staggering magnitude, does not act on pure, chaotic impulse. She acts on cold, calculated, and highly lethal strategy. She silently waits until the imposter violently hangs up the phone and storms out of the locker room, leaving behind the heavy scent of expensive perfume and the lingering, toxic residue of her massive deception. As the protagonist finally steps out of the shadows, her posture is entirely different. She stands incredibly tall, her shoulders squared, her chin held high with an innate, undeniable regal elegance that no amount of stolen billionaire money could ever possibly buy. She is no longer just surviving the brutal, unfair blows of her tragic reality. She is actively preparing to completely rewrite it. The transition is absolutely breathtaking to witness. She understands that tears, complaints, and empty accusations will get her absolutely nowhere against a fully funded, highly influential fake royalty. To reclaim her stolen throne, she needs undeniable, irrefutable, and completely indestructible proof. She needs to secure the physical evidence before the villain's hired mercenaries can turn her past into untouchable ashes. This massive realization catapults her into immediate, highly dangerous action the very same night. While the rest of the orphanage is deeply asleep and the freezing winter wind aggressively howls against the crumbling brick walls, our protagonist successfully picks the rusted lock of the corrupt director's private office. Her heart is violently hammering against her ribcage like a trapped bird, but her hands are incredibly steady, guided by an unbreakable, fierce determination to finally take back what is rightfully hers. She frantically searches through the dusty, overflowing filing cabinets, her flashlight casting long, frantic shadows across the peeling wallpaper, desperately racing against the ticking clock. She knows the villain's men are coming. She knows the flames are imminent. She is actively fighting for her own history, pulling the fragile threads of her biological identity from the dark, rotting abyss of a corrupt system. When her blistered fingers finally close around the thick, yellowed manila folder bearing her original, true name, a powerful, electric shockwave of pure triumph courses through her entire body. She has the documents, she has the timeline, she has the absolute, unassailable truth tightly secured in her hands. The epic game of high-stakes psychological chess has officially transitioned into its most lethal, aggressive phase, and the fate, Heiress, sleeping soundly in her stolen, custom-made silk sheets, is completely, terrifyingly oblivious to the massive, unstoppable storm of divine justice that is currently gathering right outside her golden gates. The hunted has officially become the hunter. Comment down below. The game has officially changed. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the absolute climax of this emotional roller coaster is exactly what we have all been desperately waiting for. The spectacular, heart-stopping moment where the heavy, suffocating curtain of lies finally and violently falls. The massive, intimidating security guards have their thick, heavy hands wrapped aggressively around her fragile, bruised arms, physically lifting her off the cold, unforgiving kitchen floor to throw her out into the freezing, dark night forever. The fake Heiress is standing just a few feet away in her custom-tailored designer gown, her chest heaving, a cruel, triumphant smirk slowly spreading across her meticulously painted lips, fully believing she has finally won this exhausting, psychological war. But in that split second of absolute desperation, our protagonist makes one of the most brilliant, emotionally devastating decisions of her entire journey. She stops aggressively fighting the guards. Instead, she goes completely limp, locking her tear-filled, fiercely burning eyes directly onto the shocked, pale face of the billionaire matriarch who is standing frozen in the doorway. And then, with a voice that is trembling from pure adrenaline, but incredibly, piercingly clear, she begins to hum. It is a highly specific, slightly off-key, and deeply intimate melody, accompanied by her bruised fingers rhythmically and gently tapping against her own collarbone. The immediate impact of this simple, quiet, and seemingly insignificant sound is infinitely more destructive than a massive explosive going off in the absolute center of that luxurious, crowded gala. The billionaire mother physically recoils as if she has just been struck by a massive bolt of lightning. The heavy, incredibly expensive crystal champagne glass she was holding slips freely from her trembling fingers and shatters violently on the pristine marble floor, perfectly mirroring the shattered dreams of the imposter. That unique, off-key lullaby, that incredibly intimate, sacred routine was a hidden truth buried so deeply in the grieving mother's shattered heart that she had not spoken a single word of it in over a decade. It was the absolute, undeniable behind-the-scenes reality of a mother's private, unconditional love. A deeply emotional secret that no forged government document, no stolen silver locket, and certainly no manipulative, sociopathic imposter could ever possibly know or artificially replicate. The matriarch's breath violently catches in her throat, her wide, tear-filled eyes frantically darting from the fake daughter, who is suddenly looking incredibly confused and increasingly panicked, to the battered, exhausted orphan being forcefully dragged toward the service exit with a voice that commands the absolute, terrifying authority of a massive financial empire. The mother fiercely screams for the security guards to stop immediately. The heavy, suffocating silence that instantly falls over that massive, crowded kitchen, spilling out into the grand ballroom, is completely deafening. The elite guards immediately freeze in their tracks, slowly releasing the protagonist's bruised arms. The mother, trembling uncontrollably, slowly walks toward the poor, shivering girl in the torn, dirty catering uniform. The fake heiress, acutely sensing the catastrophic, explosive revelations that are about to violently tear her stolen, perfect world to absolute shreds, completely loses her fragile mind. She desperately and aggressively tries to physically intervene, violently grabbing her mother's arm, hysterically screaming that the orphan is a psychotic, dangerous stalker, a pathological liar who needs to be arrested and locked away immediately. But the fake heiress's pristine porcelain mask is rapidly, violently melting under the blinding, unforgiving heat of the absolute truth. Her frantic, hysterical, and highly erratic behavior sharply contrasts with the sudden, breathtaking calmness of our true protagonist. This specific moment is the magnificent, undeniable culmination of her profound psychological transformation. She doesn't scream back. She doesn't aggressively cry. She simply stands there, her posture perfectly straight, radiating an undeniable, regal elegance and an invincible mindset that effortlessly cuts through the heavy chaos. Like a sharpened diamond blade, the mother, completely ignoring the imposter's frantic, deafening screams, gently reaches out her shaking, jewel-adorned hand and softly touches the protagonist's dirty cheek, her thumb gently grazing the exact spot where she used to rest her hand while singing that secret, rainy day lullaby all those years ago. The mother's desperate eyes fiercely search the orphan's face, looking entirely past the dirt, the dark bruises, and the profound exhaustion, and finally, miraculously, seeing the undeniable, biological reflection of her own soul staring right back at her. But this incredible, deeply emotional reunion cannot, and will not, simply happen in the quiet shadows of a catering kitchen. The universe strictly demands absolute, highly public, and undeniable justice. The massive commotion has rapidly drawn the intense attention of the national media, and the hundreds of high society guests, elite camera crews, wealthy socialites, and aggressive reporters start forcefully pushing through the swinging kitchen doors, their blinding camera flashes violently illuminating the highly dramatic, tense scene. The protagonist, fully and completely embracing her new, empowered reality, realizes this is her one and absolutely only chance to completely and publicly obliterate the massive lie that ruined her life. She slowly turns to face the massive, whispering crowd, the blinding white flashes reflecting brilliantly in her fierce, unbroken eyes. With a loud, unwavering, and deeply authoritative voice, she fearlessly exposes the entire, sickeningly corrupt operation. She meticulously details the brutal, violent theft of the silver locket in the cold school bathroom, the relentless, heavily funded psychological bullying, the deeply corrupt orphanage director who was bribed to starve her, and the desperate, terrifying lengths the imposter continuously went to in order to desperately protect her fabricated, stolen crown. The fake heiress hysterically tries to deny it all, loudly sobbing and pointing fingers. But her terrified, panic babbling only serves to further and completely incriminate her in front of the entire nation. To deliver the final, absolute, and undeniably lethal checkmate to this epic game of chess. The true heiress turns directly to her biological father, who has just frantically burst into the crowded room, and she firmly, confidently demands an immediate, legally binding, and closely monitored DNA test to be conducted the very night, right there on the billionaire estate, with absolutely no external interference or delays. The sheer, overwhelming confidence, the absolute and total lack of fear, and her steady voice is the definitive, unassailable proof of her pure innocence. The fake heiress, hearing the terrifying demand for an immediate, inescapable DNA test, physically collapses to her knees on the hard floor, sobbing hysterically and uncontrollably, finally realizing that all her stolen millions and Batam paid for. Security guards cannot possibly buy a matching biological sequence. The heavy, diamond-encrusted crown has officially, violently, and permanently fallen from the malicious thief's head. The grand, sweeping emotional catharsis we feel as an audience in this exact moment is utterly, profoundly overwhelming. We sit there, completely breathless and absolutely captivated, watching as the massive, intricate web of darkness and deception is violently torn to absolute shreds under the harsh, unforgiving spotlight of the national media. Every single cruel, mocking laugh she endured, every agonizing moment of starving in the freezing cold, every lonely tear she silently shed in the dark is being spectacularly and aggressively avenged in real time before our very eyes. This is the ultimate, monumental payoff of her incredibly painful journey, the exact, satisfying moment the universe violently and aggressively corrects the scales of divine justice, leaving absolutely no room for doubt about who truly owns the throne. Comment down below. The truth always comes out. The absolute, resounding silence that blankets the grand ballroom of the prestigious academy is heavier than a physical weight, a suffocating vacuum created in the immediate aftermath of that explosive, heart-stopping confrontation. Hundreds of the most influential, wealthy, and powerful individuals in the entire nation are standing completely frozen, like immaculate marble statues, their champagne glasses suspended in midair, their eyes wide with absolute, unadulterated shock. The blinding, relentless white flashes of the paparazzi cameras are the only things violently cutting through the thick, crackling tension, illuminating the stark, sickening contrast between the two girls at the absolute center of this monumental reckoning. On one side, we have the fake heiress, aggressively drowning in her custom-tailored, diamond-encrusted haute couture gown, her pristine porcelain mask rapidly melting to reveal the terrified, cornered, and deeply malicious thief hiding underneath. On the other side, standing incredibly tall despite the dark bruises on her arms and the freezing dampness of her ragged, sworn catering uniform, is our true, legitimate protagonist. This is the exact, breathtaking pinnacle of her entire agonizing journey. This is the magnificent, highly anticipated Cinderella moment. But instead of waiting passively for a fairy godmother to magically grant her a sparkling glass slipper, this fierce warrior queen has brutally kicked down the iron doors of high society to violently reclaim the stolen crown with her own two bruised hands. The emotional reward, the profound, overwhelming catharsis that we, the audience, have been desperately craving since the very first second of her agonizing suffering, is finally unfolding live on national television, and it is a masterpiece of divine, inescapable justice. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the sheer, astronomical impact of what the protagonist does next is exactly what completely separates a simple victim of circumstance from a brilliant, strategic mastermind. She does not merely rely on the highly emotional, tear-jerking revelation of the secret childhood lullaby, nor does she passively wait for the billionaire patriarch to slowly organize a private, discreet DNA test behind closed doors. She fully understands that the dark, rotting behind the scenes of this massive, billion-dollar deception must be violently dragged into the unforgiving, burning light of public scrutiny, or the corrupt system will simply find another way to bury her alive. With a level of majestic, terrifying calmness that completely defies the chaotic, screaming madness erupting around her, she reaches deep into the hidden, sewn pocket of her soaked, oversized catering jacket. Her trembling, but incredibly resolute fingers pull out the thick, slightly crumpled, and yellowed manila folder that she had daringly risked her own life to secure from the corrupt orphanage director's private office. She does not hand it to a security guard. She marches directly past the hysterical, hyperventilating imposter and completely bypasses the shocked, paralyzed crowd. She walks straight up to the towering billionaire father, a man whose fierce, intimidating reputation is known to break massive corporate empires with a single glance. And she firmly, confidently presses the undeniable, explosive truth directly against his chest. You want your definitive, unquestionable proof. Her voice violently rings out, echoing loudly against the vaulted, gold-leaf ceilings of the grand gymnasium, laced with a raw, undeniable authority that effortlessly commands the entire room. Here is the absolute, unassailable hidden truth that your perfect daughter desperately paid hundreds of thousands of stolen dollars to permanently burn to ashes. The father, his hands shaking with an unrecognizable, terrifying mix of profound dread and desperately blooming hope, slowly opens the battered folder. The massive, undeniable revelations that are meticulously documented inside those fragile, yellowed pages hit him with the devastating, unstoppable force of a catastrophic earthquake. It is not just a standard birth certificate. It is the original, unedited hospital admission records bearing the exact, undeniable footprints of his newborn baby. It is a series of deeply incriminating, highly detailed blackmail letters exchanged between the fake heiress and the corrupt, greedy orphanage director, explicitly detailing the exact, malicious financial transactions required to deliberately starve, torture, and systematically break the true orphan spirit. It is the undeniable, paper trail map of a monstrous, psychopathic conspiracy. As the patriarch's fierce, commanding eyes rapidly scan the undeniable evidence, the entire, glamorous world of the fake heiress violently and spectacularly collapses into absolute, irreparable ruin. The arrogant, toxic mindset that convinced the villain she could play God with an innocent girl's life is entirely, brutally shattered. The horrific, calculating decisions she made in the dark, every single bribe, every single cruel laugh, every single malicious attempt to destroy the true queen have magically violently boomeranged, locking her inside an inescapable, heavily documented prison of her own making. The sheer, breathtaking transformation of the room's atmosphere is completely electric. The high society guests, who just moments ago were blindly admiring the fake heiress and looking at the ragged protagonist with intense, elitist disgust, are now physically recoiling from the imposter as if she is violently radioactive. The fake friend she bought with stolen black credit cards immediately stepped back, aggressively whispering in absolute horror. The villain violently falls to her knees, the heavy, expensive silk of her stolen gown pulling uselessly around her on the cold marble floor. She is hysterically, frantically screaming, desperately clawing at the air, begging the billionaire parents to look at her, aggressively claiming that the documents are completely forged, that it is all a massive, insane setup by a jealous, psychotic beggar. But it is entirely, irreversibly over. The father, his face completely pale, and his eyes blazing with a terrifying, protective, and deeply lethal paternal fury, slowly raises his hand, completely silencing her frantic, pathetic begging. He doesn't even grant the manipulative thief the dignity of a response. Instead, he turns his back on the crying monster and looks directly at the quiet, bruised, and completely exhausted girl standing before him. The girl with his exact eyes. The girl with his wife's undeniable, quiet grace. The girl who survived an absolute living hell just to finally find her way back home. The emotional climax reaches an absolutely deafening, spectacular crescendo. The mother, weeping tears of pure, unadulterated joy and profound, agonizing relief, rushes forward and fiercely, desperately wraps her arms around the freezing, trembling protagonist. She unhesitatingly strips off her incredibly expensive, custom-made couture cashmere coat and gently, lovingly wraps it tightly around the true heiress's soaked, ragged uniform, a powerful, incredibly symbolic gesture of absolute protection, fierce maternal love, and official, unquestionable recognition. It is the ultimate, perfect Cinderella moment, stripped of all fairy tale magic and built entirely upon raw, unbreakable human resilience and undeniable truth. The national media captures every single agonizing, beautiful second of this profound embrace, broadcasting the spectacular, glorious triumph of the bullied orphan to millions of completely captivated viewers across the entire globe. Meanwhile, heavily armed police officers, discreetly called by the father's head of security the moment the blackmail documents were exposed, aggressively march into the grand ballroom. They firmly grab the hysterical, screaming fake heiress by her expensive, diamond-clad arms, forcefully pulling her up from the marble floor. The heavy, metallic, and incredibly satisfying click of the cold steel handcuffs violently locking around the imposter's wrist echoes loudly, serving as the perfect, poetic, and definitive punctuation mark to her dark, fraudulent reign. She is violently dragged out the back service doors, her stolen crown completely shattered, heading directly toward the brutal, unforgiving consequences of her own horrific, malicious actions. And there, standing magnificently in the center of the blinding, flashing lights, heavily embraced by the warm, fierce love of the family she fought so incredibly hard to save, the true queen finally, officially reclaims her magnificent, undeniable throne. Comment down below. The mask has finally fallen. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the absolute beauty of this entire narrative does not merely end with the spectacular, highly televised downfall of the villain and the loud, satisfying click of cold steel handcuffs. The true, profound emotional core of this story lies in the breathtaking resolution that immediately follows. That chaotic climax, when the blinding flashes of the paparazzi cameras finally fade away and the heavy, grand doors of the billionaire estate close securely against the prying eyes of the outside world, a completely different, incredibly intimate kind of healing finally begins. We need to look closely at the deeply emotional, behind the scenes of our protagonist's very first night in her true, legitimate home. Imagine the sheer, overwhelming impact of the reality finally sinking into her exhausted bones. For her entire life, she has been a deeply traumatized, heavily bullied orphan, constantly shivering in the damp, freezing darkness of a crumbling institution, violently treated as if she were completely invisible and utterly worthless. But now, she is sitting in the center of a warm, magnificently lit living room, completely enveloped in the fierce, protective, an unconditionally loving embrace of her biological parents. The mother and father are holding her so incredibly tight, weeping hot. Heavy tears of pure emotional release and profound gratitude, desperately trying to physically bridge the agonizing gap of all those stolen, lost years. This incredibly powerful, heart-wrenching image serves as the ultimate trigger of moral authority and pure love. It is the definitive, unquestionable proof that the universe, despite all its terrifying cruelty and dark obstacles, possesses a magnificent, undeniable way of forcefully correcting the scales of justice and returning what is sacred to its rightful owner. The psychological transformation that occurs within our true heiress during these quiet, healing moments is absolutely mesmerizing to witness. She is suddenly handed the literal keys to an unfathomable, world-altering empire. She has unlimited, black credit cards, fleets of luxury vehicles, armies of dedicated staff, and the highest level of social influence a person could ever possibly possess. It would be so incredibly easy, almost expected, for her to become entirely consumed by a dark, vindictive bitterness after enduring so much brutal, calculated suffering. It would be understandable if she used her massive, newly acquired power to viciously crush anyone who ever looked at her the wrong way. But this is exactly where her incredible, unbreakable mindset shines brighter than any flawless diamond in her family's massive vault. The profound decisions she makes in the immediate aftermath of her victory flawlessly demonstrate why she was always the one true, legitimate queen. Long before she ever had a single penny to her name, she does not let the astronomical wealth corrupt her pure, glowing soul. Instead of immediately running out to buy obscenely expensive designer clothes or throw lavish, arrogant parties to rub her new status in the faces of her former bullies, her very first official act as the newly reinstated heiress is directed entirely toward intense, unwavering compassion. She actively chooses to remember where she came from. She uses her massive financial resources to completely dismantle the deeply corrupt administration of the miserable orphanage where she was systematically tortured. She fires the greedy, abusive director, completely renovates the crumbling, freezing building into a state-of-the-art, deeply loving sanctuary, and ensures that every single abandoned child left behind those walls is finally given a fighting chance at a beautiful, successful future. Her greatest, most undeniable greatness is not loudly displayed through the heavy, golden crown she now rightfully wears, but through her profound, unwavering humility. She returns to the prestigious academy not as a vengeful, terrifying tyrant, but as a quiet, dignified leader who actively dismantles the toxic, elitist culture that allowed the bullying to happen in the first place. This is the ultimate, magnificent triumph of character over pure, superficial circumstance. Meanwhile, the nauseating, razor-sharp contrast of the fake heiress's new, horrifying reality is a brutal, unforgiving masterclass in cosmic karma. The shocking revelations that violently echoed through the grand ballroom have completely, irreversibly obliterated the impostor's entire fabricated existence. Stripped of all the stolen silk dresses, the sparkling tiaras, and the batam paid for elite bodyguards, she is forcefully dragged into the cold, harsh, and entirely unforgiving light of the criminal justice system. The heavy, terrifying doors of a maximum security juvenile detention center forcefully slam shut behind her, plunging her into a chilling, suffocating reality where she can no longer hide behind stolen billions or manipulate her way out of the brutal consequences of her dark, psychopathic actions. She has lost absolutely everything: her freedom, her fake family, her stolen reputation, and any remaining shred of human dignity. The massive, golden empire of lies she so aggressively and maliciously built upon the agonizing suffering of an innocent girl has violently collapsed directly onto her own head, leaving her completely alone in the dark to face the terrifying, inescapable demons of her own profound cruelty. This epic, emotionally charged journey leaves us with an incredibly powerful, life-altering message of pure hope and absolute resilience. It deeply teaches us that a person's true, fundamental worth is never, ever dictated by the designer labels they wear on their back, the luxury cars they drive, or the number of zeros sitting in their bank account. Character is the ultimate, non-negotiable currency of the human soul. The protagonist survived the absolute darkest, most terrifying depths of systematic abuse and extreme poverty because her internal moral compass was forged in solid, indestructible steel. She proved that even when you are violently stripped of your name, your family, and your basic human dignity, the pure goodness inside your heart is the one absolute thing that no thief, no matter how maliciously calculating or heavily funded, can ever possibly steal from you. This deeply moving narrative violently shatters the toxic, superficial illusion of high society, loudly proclaiming that the hidden truth, no matter how deeply it is maliciously buried under mountains of stolen money and complex, intricate lies, possesses an undeniable, almost supernatural buoyancy. It will always, inevitably, forcefully claw its way up to the surface to demand the brilliant, blinding light of day. The fake heiress built a breathtaking, towering castle entirely out of stolen, fragile glass, completely forgetting that the universe is aggressively armed with heavy, undeniable stones of truth. And when the glass finally, inevitably shattered, it was the quiet, resilient orphan, the girl whose beautiful soul remained completely uncorrupted by hatred, who was left standing magnificently in the beautiful, golden aftermath. As we watch her finally smile a genuine, deeply peaceful smile, surrounded by the warm, protective love of her true family, we are profoundly reminded that true nobility is a matter of the heart, and that justice, though sometimes agonizingly delayed, is an unstoppable, magnificent force of nature that will always find its way back to the righteous. But even with the villain locked away and the crown rightfully restored, there is still one incredibly fascinating, lingering question about the psychological aftermath of this entire ordeal that we absolutely need to explore. Comment down below. Character is worth more than gold. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because the profound, overwhelming emotional impact of witnessing such a monumental reclaiming of destiny does not just magically evaporate when the blinding flashes of the paparazzi cameras finally fade away and the heavy, solid gold doors of the billionaire estate close securely against the prying eyes of the outside world. To truly understand why this specific narrative grips our hearts so fiercely, why it violently completely accelerates our pulse and brings hot, stinging tears of absolute vindication to our eyes, we have to look past the luxurious, diamond-encrusted surface of the story and deeply examine the profound psychological mirror it holds up to our own lives. We have all been absolutely captivated by this incredible transformation, but the raw, undeniable reality is that our intense emotional investment in this bullied orphan's triumphant journey is not just about cheering for a fictional character on a glowing screen. It is about desperately cheering for ourselves. Every single one of us, at some agonizing point in our complex, challenging lives, has felt the sharp, suffocating sting of severe injustice. We have all experienced that heavy, crushing sensation of being completely overlooked, violently undervalued, or maliciously pushed aside by someone who seemed to have absolutely everything handed to them on a pristine silver platter. We have all crossed paths with our own version of the fake heiress. Perhaps not a literal billionaire imposter wearing a stolen crown, but a deeply arrogant colleague who shamelessly stole the credit for your exhausting, sleepless behind-the-scenes hard work. A manipulative friend who continuously played the victim while secretly destroying your reputation in the dark. Or a highly toxic system that systematically rewarded ruthless cruelty while heavily punishing your quiet, unwavering integrity. When you watch the spectacular, highly public downfall of the villain and the magnificent, undeniable rise of the true, legitimate queen, you are experiencing a massive, deeply personal emotional catharsis. You are actively releasing years of pent-up, silent frustration regarding the fundamental unfairness of the world. The immense impact of this story relies entirely on the powerful, universal craving for reality where the hidden truth is no longer a fragile, endangered thing desperately fighting to survive in the dark, but a roaring, unstoppable force of nature that violently shatters the most elaborate, heavily funded illusions. Think about the incredible, unbreakable mindset of our protagonist. She was violently stripped of her birthright, heavily subjected to years of calculated, psychological torture, and forced to survive in the freezing, absolute rock-bottom trenches of society. Yet, she never allowed the deep, agonizing darkness of her circumstances to penetrate and permanently corrupt the glowing, pure core of her beautiful soul. The daily, exhausting decision she made to remain fiercely kind in a deeply hostile environment, to hold her head incredibly high when the entire world was aggressively screaming at her to bow down, to meticulously protect her own dignity, when she had absolutely nothing else left to her name, are the exact same difficult, quiet decisions that define the true heroes of our own everyday reality. She brilliantly proves that true, undeniable power does not come from the heavy weight of a massive bank account, the intimidating presence of elite security guards, or the blinding, superficial sparkle of stolen haute couture dresses. True power is intrinsically forged in the searing, unforgiving fires of extreme adversity. It is cultivated in the lonely, agonizing moments when you choose to relentlessly keep fighting for your own authentic journey, even when every single odd is terrifyingly stacked against you. We absolutely love this story because it is the ultimate, definitive validation of our own silent, daily struggles. It boldly reassures us that the universe is incredibly observant, that the complex, invisible scales of divine, cosmic justice are always, inevitably working in the background, carefully preparing for the exact, explosive moment to forcefully correct themselves. The spectacular revelations that violently tore the elite high society completely apart serve as a magnificent, chilling reminder that absolutely no one can successfully outrun the brutal, unforgiving consequences of their own dark, malicious actions forever. A towering, intimidating empire meticulously built upon a rotting, fragile foundation of complex, sickening lies, stolen silver lockets, and heavily suppressed human suffering will always, inevitably crash down under the crushing, undeniable weight of its own immense arrogance. But perhaps the most beautiful, deeply resonant lesson woven into the very fabric of this epic tale is that your profound, agonizing pain is never, ever wasted. Every single cruel laugh you have been forced to silently endure, every lonely, freezing night you have spent questioning your own fundamental worth, and every heavy, heartbreaking tear you have shed in the suffocating darkness is actively, meticulously preparing you for your own spectacular moment of absolute vindication. The brutal, unfair hardships are not a permanent, lifelong sentence. They are the exact, necessary training ground for your own brilliant, undeniable emergence. This profound, life-altering realization creates a magnificent, indestructible bridge of pure empathy and absolute solidarity between all of us who have ever felt broken, lost, or entirely forgotten by the world. We are not just an isolated audience passively consuming another dramatic tale of swapped identities and billionaire dynasties. We are a deeply connected, powerful community of resilient warriors who intimately understand the heavy, agonizing cost of survival. We recognize the profound, silent strength in each other's eyes because we have all had to fiercely navigate our own terrifying minefields of manipulation and deceit. And as we collectively watch the true Heiress finally, officially embrace her incredibly bright, limitless future, her dark, bruising past no longer serving as a heavy, dragging anchor, but as an impenetrable, brilliant shield of armor, we are fiercely inspired to take a deep, unwavering look at our own intricate paths. We are intensely motivated to completely stop apologizing for our own brilliance, to violently reject the deeply toxic narratives that other, manipulative people have aggressively tried to force upon us, and to finally, boldly step into the blinding, beautiful light of our own authentic greatness. The spectacular victory of the bullied orphan is a loud, ringing, and deeply glorious battle cry for every single underdog who has ever dared to dream of a reality where the pure, unadulterated truth ultimately reigns supreme. And this incredible, complex psychological evolution, this massive shift from being a terrified, passive victim of circumstance to becoming the absolute, undisputed architect of your own magnificent destiny is precisely the fascinating, deeply intricate mechanism we are going to dissect next. We are going to completely break down the exact, hidden psychological strategies that allow a person to build the kind of impenetrable, diamond-like mental fortress, exploring the profound science behind resilience and the incredible, hidden power of emotional intelligence in the face of absolute destruction. But before we dive directly into that entirely new, highly analytical chapter of our ongoing exploration, I want to take a brief, meaningful moment to genuinely connect with the beating heart of this community. Comment down below. I am claiming my true destiny. If this deep dive into resilience and the absolute power of the truth resonated with you today, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. We are building a safe, powerful space here where we don't just tell incredible stories. We extract the profound, life-changing lessons that help us navigate our own complex journeys and build an unbreakable mindset. Leaving a like on this video is a simple, quick gesture, but it genuinely shows me that we connected today, that this narrative meant something to you, and that the message reached you exactly where it needed to, since we have been on this intense, emotional roller coaster together for the past few minutes. I want to know who the core of my true community is, the ones who stay engaged until the very last word. Drop a comment down below saying, "This message was for me." It is our little secret code to show that you are truly part of this journey and that you are ready to claim your own worth. But our conversation absolutely doesn't have to stop here. The journey of understanding human behavior and overcoming adversity is vast, and there is a video popping up right on your screen that perfectly complements everything we just talked about today. It dives even deeper into the exact steps of rebuilding your confidence and protecting your energy after facing toxic environments. Click right there, and let's continue this conversation together. I'll see you over there.